welcome. This is John Bloom of Bloom Consulting, and today we're going to be talking about the SQL Server view and how it's used and why. So if we start here where we left off at the last video on Intro to SQL Server Select Statements, you'll notice that the same code is still up. So what exactly is a view? Well, in the SQL Server database, we have these things called tables, and tables hold data, and they have fields and columns, and you can view the data. And for example, this query here joins two tables, and we can execute this query, and it returns results. It returns results from a fact table, and it returns results from a dim table. And in this case, it's showing the D, which is the alias for the date. And then we're going to go ahead and uncomment this. So what you'll see here is that we've joined the two tables, and all the fields are being displayed. But that's not exactly what we want to do. We would like to only show certain fields from this query. And the way to do that is to create a view. So you'll notice here under tables we have views, and we'll open it up and we'll see what we got. There's a few views that are already created. You'll notice that there's a schema along with a view, and we can right click this and say script and then alter. So that's one way to view the contents of an existing view. So we'll go ahead and let it load and hope for the best. So you'll notice that it prefixes with the database name. It does some stuff that gets inserted in just about every view. And then we also have the alter. You could also change that to create. But to create, if it already exists, it'll throw an error, so you have to do a drop first. And then here's the view, and then the schema, and the view name. And it looks like in this case they prefixed it with a V. That's one naming convention. We also use the VW underscore, and there's a whole bunch of naming conventions, whatever your shop uses. So then you specify as, and then your select statement, which is pretty standard in the SQL Server world or any SQL statement, and it's typically a select and a from and a where. We can go ahead and highlight that and click on execute, and guess what? It's going to return some results. That's nice. And then it looks like it's only selecting the fiscal year 2008 from this view, which is interesting because a view can call a view, which can call a view, and it can get nested like real deep. And I've worked at some places where it's an absolute nightmare trying to track down these nested views. So I don't recommend going too deep into these views because it'll drive you to drink coffee all day or other beverages if you have them handy. So anyway, we'll go ahead and close that out. Well, I'd like to take this exact query, right, that we've already created in our previous demo, and I'd like to right-click and say New View. So guess what? This land of SQL Server, it allows you to use the wizards, and typically I don't really use the wizards all the time, but it's a nice feature to have. Now you can choose an existing table, you can choose an existing view, a function, or a synonym. Well, I don't want to do it that way, so we'll go ahead and close it out. In this case, all you really have to do is say create. You have to use the proper English. Create view, and we'll say VW Bloom Consulting Demo 1 as F5. Well, there it is. So one line of code plus our copy and paste, and we have a view created. We go ahead and right-click our views, we refresh, and sure enough, okay, so what we have to do is we have to prefix it with our famous DBO schema. We'll go ahead and say create view. It said there's already an object in the database. It created it in the master view. So we'll go ahead and look for our view, right? And then we'll notice that it's here. We'll just go ahead and drop it and execute. So we weren't expecting that, but you got to see how to drop a view. Now, the next thing you'll know is I added the DBO prefix, because without that, well, it needs it. But anyway, because you can also change it to another schema if you had one available. But we'll go ahead and create the view, and we're going to be smart enough this time to put it in the proper database, which is this one. Go ahead and check it once, check it twice, and then also execute. And then hopefully, with the good Lord willing, we'll go ahead and go back to our regular database, which is down here. And then we'll right-click it, and you'll notice, guess what? There's a view VW Bloom Consulting Demo 1. So that's terrific. And we can right-click it and say Alter, right? And then there it is. So if we were to just highlight it and run it, boy, that looks pretty good. So why would I do this? Well, a lot of times in the data warehousing world, you have these tables, and tables change over time. And there's also fields in there that you may or may not want to display to everybody. For example, let's say you had an employee table and it had salary. Well, the person running the report, maybe the is not supposed to see everybody's salary. So what we can do is we can put a layer in between, and the layer happens to be a view. In that view, you can put business rules within your view. So the first business rule I'd like to insert is where. Let's go ahead and say the date key. Well, in this case, we already have our phys, which is our alias, order date key. So I want to restrict the order date key greater than or equal to 2005. Let's say 0101, and the date key is less than or equal to 2005 1231. So what that'll do, it'll apply a where filter. It'll say restrict this query result set where the order date is greater than 511 and less than December. And we can go ahead and run that, and we should get less rows, right? 1013. If I exclude that where clause, you're going to get more rows than that. So anyway, we'll go ahead and stop that. It's taking too long. And then this nice feature here is called alter. So I can go ahead and just alter all day long. Just keep altering. But if I was to say create, it's going to throw an error and say, oh, guess what? It's already there. So we just revert it back and alter. So that's one way of doing it. The second thing is that in this example, I only want to show all the contents of the fact table, but perhaps in the dim table, the d.asterisk, if we go back to our table that shows the d, which is the dim date, let's say I want to show the full date alternate key. And I didn't want to type it, so I just did that. And then, guess what? I inserted that field, and then you run it, and oh, we just got to clean up our comment there. And then we'll go ahead and run that. And you'll notice at the end of the field is the full date alternate key. So we added an extra field, but we hid the remaining fields. So all the other fields in the date table we're not going to display. So whoever runs this view is only going to see these fields. Now what you do is you lock down the dim table, the dim date, and they can't see that, but they can see the view, and you can restrict the view based on a whole bunch of business rules. So that's how it works. So now that we've created that view, and we can just run it again, make sure we got it. What we'll do is we'll go back to our view over here, just do a refresh, which isn't required, and then we'll just say select top 1000. And guess what? It's smart enough to know the field names ahead of time. So based on the field name selected in the contents of the view, that's what it displays over here. You also notice if we were to take out the top 1000, it should be 1013, yeah. So that's how you do it. So views are very powerful in the world of SQL development, and that's how it works. And what happens is, which we'll show in another video, is that the data gets inserted to the table. There's that middle layer called the view, which you can apply to business rules. Then we can add another layer called the stored procedure. And that stored procedure, you can add parameters and such, because the world of views doesn't really like the parameters too much. You can't, it doesn't allow you to use parameters. So you'd have to wrap this in another wrapper called the stored procedure. And that stored procedure you can lock down with permissions. You can apply parameters, and that can be called from an SSRS report, from just about anywhere. But that's how it works, and we'll get to that next video later. But anyway, thanks for watching, and that's basically your intro to SQL Server Views. My name is John Bloom of Bloom Consulting. Thanks for watching, and look forward to more videos in the future.